Okay, we have reached our final activity, activity number 10 in engineering towers. And today's activity, I'm going to demonstrate to you how to assemble your tower. But before we get to the actual assembly part, we want to take a look at this tower here and some things you want to pay attention to as you're assembling. Now, first of all, I wanted to show you this line that goes between the two views here, where we're assembling one view to the next. This line is called a seam, S-E-A-M. You will actually have 4 seams, one on each side of the tower as you're assembling the tower. And along these seams, we also want to take a look closely at some spots on here where when you're gluing your tower together, we want to be able to test your design on test day, not the assembly of the seams. So I wanted to show you a couple of areas on this tower in particular where, as I point to the seam right here, if you can look closely, the seam along this tower was not glued together very well. And so the opening here where you can see through from one side of that seam to the other side is called an air pocket. Now an air pocket definitely shows you right here that these two views are not attached together. So what has happened in the past when we've tested towers like this with the air pockets and the seams, the towers broke apart rather than being tested along their design. So let's try to avoid that as you assemble your tower. The products that you're going to need to assemble your tower will be a paintbrush, tape, glue, and some pins. We're going to show you this sample tower here, and this is an example of a tower that has 2 different designs. If you built your tower with 4 of the same designs, it doesn't matter at this point which view you start with first. But when you have 2 different designs like this tower right here, we're going to take the designs that are identical and we're going to glue them opposite each other during this process. So I'm going to start with this design here. I'm going to take the matching design and just set it aside, and I'll put these 2 views aside as well. We'll start with the pins. When you're pinning these, you're only going to cross pin at the base of the tower and at the peak or the top of the tower. So we're going to go a set of cross pins at the base, and let's do a set of cross pins across the top. And what we're going to be doing is we're going to take the other 2 views, these 2 right here, and we're going to glue those opposite each other on the sides here. So to do this, we're going to take glue straight from the bottle, no glue lids, and run a bead of glue across one of the sides right here. So a steady bead of glue all the way across the side. And before we just pin down the other view, we want to make sure that the glue bonds between the 2 views. So we just have enough to cover that seam there. And we're going to take this side view here, and we're going to set it right on top and gently glide this back and forth. When you glide these 2 views back and forth, you're eliminating the majority of those air pockets we were talking about. Now that you have everything lined up, go ahead and put a set of cross pins at the very bottom and make sure your cross pinning is really tight. The tighter the cross pinning is, the better this view will stand up by itself. So I put 1 set of cross pins down at the bottom here. I'm going to put a set of cross pins at the top as well. And as I set this down on here, again, making sure that the pins are tight as possible. Being tight on there means to be able to have those pins actually touch the pieces of wood as they're resting on them. Now I'm going to do the same thing to the other side view. I want to run a bead of glue across the other side view. Steady bead of glue. Try not to leave any gaps in there, because that's how air pockets develop, or any gaps in the glue. There we go. And now we're going to set the other view on top. That's the identical to the view I just pinned down. Glide the 2 views back and forth. Align everything up. And again, we're going to cross pin at the base, down here. And we're going to put a set of cross pins at the top. The next thing we want to do is we want to put the 4th and final view together. It's more or less like constructing a box here. So what we want to do with this one is we're going to go ahead and run a bead of glue across these 2 side edges here. Again, try to eliminate any little gaps in the glue. A steady, constant bead of glue all the way across. Not too much that's going to make your bridge too heavy, or your tower too heavy, because remember, we're going to pre-weigh your towers, and that number, that pre-weight, starting weight, will be applied toward your final efficiency rating. The lighter the tower, the more weight it holds, the higher the efficiency. Now that I have glue across those two edges, I want to make sure this final view matches the first one I pinned down. We're going to set this view on top, gently glide. We want to align everything as best possible. And here's where the tape comes in. We're going to take tape and we're going to lay the tape over the top of the view here, just across the top, and with a pinching action, a pinching motion, pinch the two views gently together. We're going to do the opposite corner the same way. Lay the tape over the top, align everything, gently pinch the views together. And then we want to do the other two corners. So we're going to go across here, pinch together. And we're going to go across this corner, pinch together. And then finally, before we put this away to dry, you want to take your tower and inspect your seams. Look at the seams to see whether or not everything is filled in. You want to, if you have extra glue dripping across here, that's where the paintbrush comes in. You want to make sure those seams are joined. With a nice, just go across there real lightly with your paintbrush to smooth in that glue. So you look at these seams, no air pockets. So then we want to turn around and look at the other two seams. Again, using your paintbrush, you want to fill in right along these gaps here, just a light coat here. If you do have an air pocket, then go ahead and fill that in with the brush only. Keep the minimum amount of glue on your seams. Once you have your seams checked, then what you need to do is just let this dry overnight, and then tomorrow when you come in, you'll be able to take off the tape, and we'll be able to take the drawings off and see how close you matched your drawings to your final tower. So right there is how you construct a tower. It's simple. Allow yourself at least 15 to 20 minutes to do this, and you should have no problem assembling your final product.